Welcome to Chalk Talk, Danville Public Schools weekly news magazine. I'm Diane Locker, your host. Our show this week is very special because we, as a community and as a school district, have a great opportunity to have input into what's happening on the national level, but mainly right here in Virginia, right here in Danville. I have with me our delegate, Danny Marshall, and welcome, Danny, to our show.
And thank you, Diane. Thanks so much for letting me be here today to get this message out to the people that will watch this.
The other person that's here with me today is very significant in this also, and that's our superintendent, Dr. Stanley Jones. And Dr. Jones, before I go to Delegate Marshall, tell me a little bit about what we're doing here in our school system for school safety.
Well, the short answer is anything possible. We have a number of protocols and tools in our toolbox related to school safety, and we want to always rethink about how we can fully implement those tools.
Now, here's the big one.
Okay.
And you are the important one here for us today because you are the vice chairman of a committee that's going to be looking at school safety. Is that the proper way to put it?
Well, let me tell you how we got here. So after the Parkland tragedy, watching one of the Sunday morning TV shows, one of the parents was being interviewed. And so the commentator asked him, he says, so what do you think we need to do about school safety? The parent said, stop. It's not about guns. It's about securing the schools. And he says, you think about this. When you go into a courtroom, you can't even go into a courtroom with a cell phone, much less a gun. And he says, after 9/11, the issue only was about securing the airports. It wasn't about gun control. It wasn't about anything else. It was just about securing the airports. And he says we need to do the same thing with the school. So I went to the Speaker of the House, who is an 800-pound gorilla in the General Assembly, and gave him this idea, and I said, I think that we need to look at this when we are off season. We're only in season in General Assembly session, 60 days in even years, and so we're supposed to be through by now. But we will have a select committee. And so what he did is he looked at, how long we have been in session. And so we can do special things. And this is called a select committee on school safety.
First, now, what do you mean by select committee?
Well,
what's the difference between a select committee and a committee?
Well, so we have different commissions that meet outside of session. Like I'm on a housing commission, I'm on a small business commission, tobacco commission. They meet outside of session. We don't have any committees that meet outside of session. So this is the first time a select committee has been come forward since Abraham Lincoln was president, a long time ago. So
I wasn't around then.
I was not either. So I don't know who anybody was. So the committees are made up in the General Assembly and the House delegates of 22 members. So this is a committee just like any other one, 22 members. It will be 10 Democrats and 12 Republicans. And so we are going to meet at least 4 times, and then we'll break up all 22 of us, and then we'll break up into subcommittees on specific tasks.
Now, out of those 22 members, is every school district in the state of Virginia represented?
No, it's not that way. It's if you look at, go down the list, the speaker was the one who put the list up. And so I, got to be vice chair since it was my idea. And so we have the courts committee, House Courts Committee is on there. The House Appropriations guy, the committee that writes a check. The one school on school safety is on there. K through 12 education is on there, and so other people. But we do have kind of spread all over the state, but not probably every jurisdiction. There's 100 of us in the House, so not all of us on there.
Now, you're asking for the community, and one of the reasons we wanted to do the show today is that you're asking the community to be part of this, and I think that everyone in the community needs to realize this is unique. It's unique for us to have the opportunity to have a say-so about what's going to be going into the committee, how to keep our kids safe. And I think the letter you sent out was very important. You talked about if you're a grandparent, if you're a parent, if you're a member of the community, not just parents of kids in school.
Well, absolutely. And so one thing that I didn't leave out, and then I'm going to jump to yours, is that when I went to the speaker, I have three school systems in my house district: City of Danville, Pennsylvania County, and Henry County. And I know that each one of those schools will want to do what the right thing is as far as school safety. But the problem is dollars. You know, we are all dealing with a limited budget, and so we're going to have probably two pots of money. First of all, is secure the school. Each school, you think about just the schools in the city of Danville, that's going to be a pretty good size, cost right there. And then the other thing is going to be the ongoing school security. Is it resource officers? Is it other type of security, protocols that we will come up with? And so hopefully that will happen is the state will fund that, and that money will come back to the localities. And we'll come up with a protocol on what you're going to have to do. You know, we always.
I was going to say, is this like money that Dr. Jones can like wake up one day and find this money here in the budget, or are we going to have to do something to get to this money?
Well, the answer is maybe. And so
Is this called a work in progress?
it is a work in progress that we haven't even started the work. So we just all 22 of us is out in our community talking to people, getting ideas. And so we don't know what it's going to cost because we haven't gotten to that point yet. So it's going to be expensive type of situation, because if you just think about the number of, it's not just the schools, it's the buildings. If you look at GW, you got the main campus, but then you got the two outlying buildings, and you got other buildings out, that some schools have trailers behind them. So how do you secure all of those? And so the issue is how do you do that, and how it can be consistent from one school district to another school district to another school district.
Let me just ask Dr. Jones one question. When he's talking about securing a school, I look at what we've already done here in Danville, and I think, okay, we've done something to secure our schools. I mean, all our schools are locked. You have to like ring yourself in. We have resource officers, that type of thing. If you had a wish list, and if you wanted to tell Delegate Marshall right now, what would you want to secure our schools? What would that be?
Well, I think he's ahead of the curve already. First of all, he's talking about funding for public schools to secure school buildings, which is not something that usually happens. You know, we get a mandate, we don't usually always get funding with it. So the fact that we're talking about funding to secure schools is really a big deal. The bigger challenge is, what does that mean? And school security is broad and deep. It's not just one thing. It's not just locking the building. It's not just an SRO or school security officer. It's not just cameras. There are a number of strategies. It's also training our staff. So he's on target when he talks about we're just beginning to do the work. Everyone has an idea. People typically think about worst case scenario when it comes to school safety, but most of the things we deal with on school safety are not worst case scenarios. Fire drills, how we evacuate students, how we move students throughout the building. All those things are related to school safety, and we deal with school safety issues every single day. Most of them are sort of small scale types of things. The public, I think, tends to think about the worst case scenario, armed intruder. But anything we do to ensure kids are safe in school and our staff is safe at school is school safety.
Basically what you're saying is school safety is a very broad term, not just the kind of thing that we see in the national news at Parkland or something of that nature.
Well, and Google is a wonderful thing, because if you just Google school safety, there's all kinds of what other school systems throughout the U.S. are doing. You know, some school systems have like the whiteboards or rolling whiteboards, but those things are bulletproof, so they can roll them and kids can hide behind them. Some school systems are even using smoke bombs inside of their hallway, so that if an intruder comes in there, they can just push it and the person will get disoriented. They have different things like that. Some school systems are using like a box that can push a button, so that the principal's office can let that teacher know that there's an intruder in, but also can let the sheriff's office know about that. So there are already some ideas out there, and then plus some of the technology companies that here are in the state. I've had some pretty smart guys and girls have contacted me about some of the things that could be done, with a thumbprint when a person comes into or either an eye scan comes in, so that thumbprint when he comes in, not only tells that person that you are okay to be in that school, but it also can do roll at the same time.
One thing, just in the things that you've been talking about and the things that you mentioned, Dr. Jones, that look how much we are learning about what other people are doing just because this committee has been set up.
Right.
I mean, we're learning what's going on around the country.
Well, and that's part of the things we want to do is we have these experts going to come in and speak to our committee and to the work groups to give us what best case scenario, and then we'll work throughout this spring, summer, and fall and come back with ideas. Now, one of the things we got to look at is that the reason that that one of the members is on this is his name is Rob Bell, Delegate Rob Bell from up in Charlottesville. He is the chairman of the courts committee. So we have been told that if you put like a deadbolt on the inside of a classroom door, then that violates the building code. And so the issue is the law of unintended consequences. You know, that's a simple, pretty simple, inexpensive fix, but then you violate the building code. So you got to figure out how to fix this over here that you don't do something else that, you know, harms the building code or something of this nature.
In other words, we can't just let the schools make a decision about what they're going to do or the House of Delegates make a decision about what they're going to do. We've got to look at everything that goes into it. One of the things, and it was the main focus of the letter that you sent out to the community, and I believe, what'd you say, you sent out 1,800?
18,000.
18,000. I was off just a little there. But you sent out those letters, and what you're asking is that in certain categories, and we're going to talk about those, you want the input from the community.
Right.
But you want to keep that input to these focus items that we're going to talk about, and you want that in writing.
Well, I'd like to have it in an email form so that we can be specific about what we're going to deal with. We're not dealing with everything under the sun. We have broken this down into 6 categories, and so these 6 categories is what we're going to deal with to start with. Now, I'm sure we'll probably come back year 2, year 3, and deal with other issues, but to deal with, to start with, is let me just go over those. All right, so the first one is strengthening emergency preparedness.
All of these, when I looked at them, when I looked at the 6 of them, it's not just schools. When you talk about emergency preparedness, we're talking about the police, we're talking about the emergency people, we're talking about doctors and that type of thing. So it's everyone.
I got an email about this one right here from somebody from Danville Life Saving Crew. He says, don't forget the life saving crews in emergency medical. And he's right. And so we've got to, you know, in worst case scenario, that if we have something like that, he's suggesting that people need to be taught CPR and other type things like that inside the classroom. You maybe ought to do that. So.
There's something starting. They're going to teach. It sounds kind of crazy, but how to stop bleeding at our high school level. Someone has talked to me about that.
It's a crazy world we have to do. Is that?
I know that the EMT are going to come here and teach the students how to do that and teach the teachers. So that would be part of that emergency preparedness. You've got hardening school security infrastructure, which you mentioned some of that.
All right, so what we are also looking at is other school systems are using bulletproof glass for the exterior glass. And so we're going to look at that. There's a company over in Martinsville called Eastman that makes window film. And so we're reaching out to them to see if they make a window film that will stop a bullet. Or either maybe you just take the windows out and put masonry there so that that bullet can't come through. You know, back in the old days when I was in school, you open the windows. Most schools now are air conditioned, so you don't have that. So, but
you've got the implementing security best practices, and I think you were talking about that in the general school safety thing of fire and a lot of other things.
Well, we hopefully will come up with a protocol that will be a best practice that we'll be able to disseminate all over the state of Virginia, and so that Danville school system can use part of it. Pittsylvania, Henry County, et cetera, et cetera.
The deploying additional school personnel, what does that mean?
Well, I think what that means is resource officers is what we know it as. And it might be another type. It might be something we don't know of yet. But we know about resource officers because y'all have resource officers.
But now, we don't have resource officers in every school.
No, we don't. We have them out in our secondary schools. And we also have school security officers. in our schools.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we're one of the few school divisions in the region that has school security officers.
What is a school security officer?
So a school security officer is an employee of Danville Public Schools. A school resource officer is a law enforcement officer. That's the difference. And our school security officers are trained in a number of school security measures, training, crisis planning, et cetera,
But
supervision.
that would be the kind of thing that might be fed into your committee.
Well, I
that
think
some other
so.
school.
Just like that, and we have talked a little bit about that offline, even though we haven't had a meeting yet. Do these resource officers, do we use resource officers that are a employee of the sheriff? Or do we use a school employee?
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll come up with that yet to see which way that will go also.
Now, this next one, I think we're already doing some of this in the school systems, all school systems are, and that is additional behavioral health resources for students. Now, what do you mean by that? I don't mean health, I don't think you're talking about health resources like putting on a Band-Aid.
No, I think that's a pretty broad and slippery slope that we're going to have to go down. Is that because if you saw what happened in Parkland, that young man, there was a lot of red flags going. That those flags are waving, and somebody didn't see those, and so
Not only in the health portion of that, but in the law enforcement, that had tentacles going way out there.
It did, and so the question, and I'm not a lawyer, none of us are lawyers, but the lawyers are going to get, that's going to be a lawyer question right there, is what can you do that to protect the students that doesn't harm their civil liberties?
Right.
And that's going to be an issue.
In other words, in the schools, if you see someone that you think really has a problem, legally, what can you do?
That's exactly the questions being raised.
Yes.
An example might be threat assessment.
Yes.
If a student has exhibited threatening behavior, what's our protocol for assessing the threat and making a decision about how we deal with that issue with that student?
I think the last one, developing prevention protocols in primary and secondary institutions. And I read that to say, are we going to do this elementary through secondary, or are you talking on through the universities also?
This is K through 12, and so we're not going to, at this point, we're not going to higher ed. It's not going to tech or UVA or looking at those, because a lot of those already have that in place. Tech and UVA already have their own police department, and so we're going to take just K through 12 to start with, and that's a pretty good large undertaking to start with.
Now, those are the areas that you want the information in, and I'd like for you to also fill us in on an email that I saw go out talking about Delegate Marshall's program, the things that he wanted. Haven't we sent something to everyone in our school system?
We have. We sent out an email basically soliciting information from our staff related to Delegate Marshall's letter and the information he's requesting. We sent that to our entire staff. We want to get in front of the ideas and start also creating a mechanism for folks to communicate directly with Delegate Marshall and the committee.
Good. Thank you.
Sure.
Now, I think you've already started to get some feedback. What types of things are coming to you, and what types of things do you not need coming to you?
Well, what I'd specifically like to do is to get, if we could get, emails along those 6 points that were on that was on that letter. And if you happen not to get a letter, then reach out. There's an email address on the screen. Email me, and we'll get the letter to you.
Now, do you have a website set up? I believe someone.
We don't have one today, but we'll probably have one within a couple of weeks. That and the way this website will work is, at least the way I asked for it to work, is so that if you have an idea on number one, you can click on number one, and what you can do is we want to track to make sure that these ideas are coming from Virginia. We don't want ideas from California, from Florida, et cetera. So you click on that right there. You have to put in your email address and your zip code. And so then if you want to make a comment about number one, you'll be able to do so. So that website will be up within a couple of weeks. And what I'll do, as soon as that comes up, I'll give you the website address, and you can broadcast it out.
what we'll also do to try to make it easier for the community, we talked about the 6 areas. I'll try to have those on the screen along with your mailing address, along with your email address, because you do want these to come in that way. Now, I forgot to mention at the first of the show, and I think it's important for the community to know this, you are a GW graduate,
Yes.
Danville Community College,
Yes.
Averett.
Yes.
You are homegrown.
Yes.
You are 14th District Representative. That means City of Danville,
It means all
Pittsylvania
of Danville,
County.
southern part of
and-
Pennsylvania, eastern part of Henry.
All right, all right. And I think that we should be very proud.
Thank you.
And I know I'm speaking for the school system here. It's an honor for us to be able to have this kind of input,
Well, I
to be
think,
part of this.
well, I appreciate you saying that, but you know, the thing, watching that parent when he was being interviewed on that Sunday morning show, you know, you could see in his face, and I think, you know, it was really heartfelt that he says the issue is about securing the school. Yeah. And that's a simple thing. And so if we get to school secured, then hopefully then part of this goes away. And so, you know, I've had a lot of ideas. I've had some good ideas about this. And so, you know, we don't want to make the schools look like prisons, but it's going to be different than when we went to elementary school and high school. So.
I think that's one thing that people need to realize. A lot of things have changed in our lives, but our schools are going to have to look a little bit different in the future, too.
We still want them to be schools, though.
Yeah, we still want them to be schools, and we still want the primary thing to be teaching.
Well, but if the school's are secure, then that student, when he goes in that tomorrow morning, that teacher and the administration and the staff, all the staff, then they don't have that fear with there. They know that they can go there and learn in a good environment.
And I think also, going back to Dr. Jones talking about what we mailed out, I think it's going to be very significant, the feedback that we get, because it's going to be from people, only from people that are connected with the school system. And those are the people, I think, that really have, let's say, a horse in this race.
Well, they see it every day. I mean, they live it, 24/7 almost.
I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. Thank you also, Dr. Jones. I pulled everything together at the last minute, but you've got to get back to Richmond, and I think it was so important that we do this and emphasize to the community how important this is.
Well, thank you so much. This is really important, and so if anyone out there has an idea, please, along those 6 points, please email me. We want your ideas.
I want to say to everyone out there, this is a really good opportunity for us in the school system and also for everyone in this community. It doesn't make any difference whether if you have a child attending school, you might be a grandparent, you might be a member of this community, because safe schools are important to everyone in this community, not just the people that are attending schools. I want to thank you for being with us this week, and be sure to get your information back to Delegate Marshall. And we hope that you'll come back next week and find out what we're doing here in Danville Public Schools.